Have you ever looked at your bank account and thought, why does it feel like everyone has some secret rule book around money, except for me?
Like there's some secret language to money, and somehow we're all expected to just figure it out.
And if you grew up around financial stress, like overdraft fees, debt, bills you don't talk about, well, this episode, it's going to hit. Because today's guest, Tyler Osborne, didn't start with a golden spoon in his mouth. In fact, he started with the opposite.
And instead of letting his story define him, he used it like fuel to build a life where money isn't the boss anymore.
Tyler is a financial educator, speaker, and the host of the Money Masters podcast. And he's here to talk about the stuff most people never learn in school, but pay for with years of stress.
We're talking financial education here, asset protection, and how to spot the difference between real guidance and someone who's just trying to sell you something.
And Tyler doesn't just give theories. He gives practical frameworks, like his 70-10-20 rule, and why paying yourself first isn't a cute quote. It's a survival skill we all need. We also go deeper into why budgeting should be taught earlier and why so many people feel behind no matter how much they earn.
And how financial ignorance keeps people stuck, especially in communities where good advice is hard to come by and bad advice is running rampant.
So whether you're trying to get out of survival mode or you're trying to protect what you're building,
Or if you're just tired of feeling like money has a chokehold on you, this episode is a wake-up call. This is the Five Guys Podcast. Tyler Osborne, let's get into it.
So Tyler Osborne, welcome to the Five Guys podcast. I'm so glad to have you here with us. As we get into everything, Tyler, would you mind just kind of giving our audience an origin story of yourself, where you came from, what brings you here today?
Yeah, absolutely, man. First and foremost, thanks for having me on the show. Excited to be here and speak with you and your audience and things like that. But honestly, man, sports saved my life. The reason I just said is the majority of my friends growing up are either no longer living in prison or struggling on drugs. So I had a pretty rough upbringing. For the most part, my little brother was shot over 5 times and lived. Thank God he actually still has a bullet in his ankle that they couldn't like get out or whatever. So it is what it was. But sports really did save my life. I was able to get away from that type of environment growing up in Northern California. Ended up getting a football scholarship to University of St. Mary's in Kansas. In 2010, I was in what's called like the small school NFL combine for kids who didn't go to big schools, but the NFL, if you can play, they look for you for the most part. So ended up going to that. Didn't get drafted, had to figure out what to do next. When I was in school, I got my degree in psychology. So originally I wanted to be a marriage counselor. Ended up getting married and no longer wanted to be a marriage counselor. It's kind of that happened right there. Still married, got 4 kids, an 18-year-old. I have a 15-year-old, a 14 or a 12-year-old, boy, girl. So my wife tells me I can make any type of baby that I want because I got them boy, girl, which is pretty cool. And then for there, I had to figure out what to do next. And I found out the number of reasons that people were splitting up was because of finances. So I wanted to be a marriage counselor, got married, like, nah, I got to figure out my own freaking marriage first. And then when I found out the number of reasons people were splitting up was because of finances, I said, okay, I should probably work in that industry. And I just remember praying out one day to God, looking for an opportunity. And the Lord just kind of told me, and I'm a big believer in Jesus Christ. That's just me, not trying to put my beliefs on anybody else. But he just told me, apply for JP Morgan. I was like, Chase? I got a psychology background. I don't know if I'm going to get that. All right. So I started the application and I got frustrated during the middle of it because it had me like doing math. Like, what the heck is this? My sister-in-law at the time was a banker for like a small credit union in Northern California, what is it called? Star One Credit Union. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not. But she was a banker there. And she was like, yeah, I never had to do math when I was, trying to, apply for the job. I was like, yeah, it had me doing math problems and stuff. I was like, man, forget that. So I stopped in the middle of it. Literally, me and my wife went out on a date, went to movies and stuff like that. I got home probably close to midnight, and the Lord just kind of nudged me like, hey, go finish that application. I was like, all right. So I got up, went to go finish the application, ended up finishing it, did all the math crap they asked me to do. And then that was on a Friday. That Monday, I got a phone call.
Wow.
Yeah, I got a phone
Quick
call.
turnaround.
Yeah, quick turnaround. Seriously. That Monday, I got a phone call from a lady named Jeannie. And she was like, okay, I'm going to set you up on an interview. All right, cool. So she set me up on an interview, went to an interview in Mountain View, California. Look, for those of you who aren't sure what that area, that's a little bit outside of Palo Alto, Silicon Valley area. So I ended up going to an interview out there, sat down with the gentleman, and I met with one guy, and he liked me quite a bit. He was like, you know what? Can you come back tomorrow to meet our general manager? I was like, okay, cool. So the next day I came back, met the general manager, and this guy just kept tearing me down, dude. He was like, at that point in time, like at that time I think I was only 22 years old. And this dude was like, well, how come you haven't had a job in the last year? I was like, dude, I was training for the NFL. And he just like, he would not accept that answer why I didn't have a job over the past year. Cause literally, when you play high level sports, like that is your job.
Yeah,
like is
that's
to,
everything.
yeah, dude. So my job was to wake up, work out at 6 o'clock in the morning, go home, get a little bit of rest, come back, work out again. And that was my routine for like a year, training for the NFL. And he just wouldn't accept that. And he was just like, yeah, this probably isn't going to be for you. It sounds like, you're not that ambitious. You didn't have a job. I was like, not that ambitious because I didn't have a job. It was crazy. The dude just like literally was just tearing me down. And I walked over like, yeah, I guess finances ain't for me. And I end up leaving. And like a week or so goes by. And this lady, Jeannie, gives me a call back again. And she's like, hey, Tyler, I just wanted to check up on you. How did the interview go? I was like, I ain't heard nothing back. The first one went well, but then I met the general manager and I don't think he liked me too much. And she was like, wait, what? It's like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I like you. And I'm going to go ahead and set you up with another interview out of that guy's district. Don't even worry about it. And she was like, I'm going to send you to a hiring event. I was like, all right, cool. So 2 days later, I end up going to another interview for JP Morgan, and I'm sitting in like a room. It wasn't like at an average branch. It was like at I don't know if it almost looked like a call center type building. And I walk in and I go and sit down and they're like, all right, Mr. Osborne, you here? Like, yeah, I'm here. So they walk me, they put me into a room. I'm sitting here talking with this gentleman. And then for like the next hour and a half, he's asked me questions, but it's all about football. All about football, all about football. And he's just literally asked me something. And I'm just like, dude, are you ever going to ask me any questions as far as like, why I should get the job or like that? And after the conversation, I was like, all right, cool. We'll be in contact. And I just left out the interview like, he didn't really, all he did is talk to me like, because on my resume, I put, that I was training for football and NFL. And the funny thing is my mom told me to do that. Like, just put that you played football. I didn't think people cared about that type of stuff. But anyways, I just decided to put it on there. And from there, the guy talked to me, like I said, about football for like an hour and a half. And I got a call a week later from someone for that worked for JP Morgan. They're like, hey, can you come into the branch? I think we want to hire you. I was like, oh, okay. So I went into another interview with a lady named Vicky, and Vicky sat down with me and she talked to me about football for like 30 minutes. And she's like, well, are you good at sales? I was like, yeah, I don't really have too much experience in it, but I'm good with people. That's what I do know. And she's like, okay, cool. And she gave me the job on the spot. And that's kind of how I got into the industry per se, is going through all that process and that guy tearing me down and then talking to another guy about football for like an hour and a half. And that's how I got my foot into the financial industry. And I was with them for a couple years. And what I remember doing is one day I had helped somebody do like a $500,000 rollover of an old 401k/IRA. They're moving from their job over to JP Morgan or whatever. And I had got paid like $2,000 or whatever. I made like $2,000 on it. And at that point in time, I was like 22 years old or whatever. So I was fired up about the transaction. Like, dude, I made $2,000 in an hour. So I was fired up, And I don't know what made me do it, but I just went home and did some research and just kind of found out like if I would have had my own firm, that $2,000 would have been close to like $30,000. I was like, oh, heck no. I'm going to figure out a way to do this on my freaking own. And that's why I just kind of decided to figure out a plan to kind of leave. I ended up meeting somebody, decided they'd mentor and train me and coach me on what I could do to kind of leave and open up my own. I did everything they told me to do. And then from there, I have my own firm. And then I've been in business for myself now for 13 plus years now. Wow. Business for myself, yeah. And then what ended up happening was probably about a year ago now. Yeah, about a year ago exactly. I had ended up getting my own podcast and stuff like that. And from there, I just wanted to educate people on finances. That's just kind of been something I wanted to do, just kind of understand how much it means to so many different people. A lot of times most people learn about finances when they actually either go through bankruptcy or go through their first divorce, which neither are good. A lot of people start learning from that way. And I didn't want that to be people, which if I had a ability to help somebody, I just want to go ahead and do it. And then I came across you guys' podcast and it's like, you know what, I'd love to hop on there and talk with those guys. They talk finances and, helping people in their journey with their finances. And that's kind of how we're here today.
Well, thank you for telling me that origin story, Tyler. Could you tell me a little bit about your philosophy on money? Like what is it that you kind of preach and try to teach the people that you work with?
Number one, I truly believe you need to be paying yourself first. That's probably one of the first things. I truly believe people need to pay themselves first. Most people save the crumbs instead of saving up front. So people work so hard, getting paid. Some people, depending upon your profession, you might get paid, twice a month or once a month if you're, God bless teachers, man. Oh my goodness. But I truly believe you need to pay yourself first. That's one of the first things. But I also believe you got to knock out debt, get rid of debt. I also need to believe that you need to have you ever heard the 7-10-20 rule?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe in the 7-10-20 rule, making sure that you live.
Could you explain that for the audience?
Yeah, for sure. So living off of 70% of your income, going ahead and make sure that you're paying 10% towards your future investment savings and then 20% knocking out your debt. Now, once you've gone ahead and done that, you can go ahead and start reversing things, paying more towards your investments. And then 10 for me, I live off of 60-10-10-20, meaning this, I'm a giver. So I'm giving back to organizations that I believe in, things like that. But we're going ahead and doing that. So making sure that you're having investments, you're going ahead and live off of 70%, and then you're knocking out your debt. So I believe that's kind of the philosophy. But then I'm huge in making sure people are properly protected. And what I mean by that is properly protected from outside sources that want to get access to your money. So I'm huge on trust, making sure people have proper trust set up and things like that. And I believe in you want to own nothing, control everything. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Right. So I'm a big philosophy in that. Own nothing, control everything. So I truly believe people need to get things out of their name so that people cannot attack you and come after your money and try to sue you and things like that. So there's ways that you can do it properly, and which you can protect yourself. There's pretty cool ways you could do in which you can. It's a money podcast. Let's talk about it, right? So there's ways you could do that stuff in which you don't have to worry about if you do get a divorce, somebody taking half or child support. There's ways you could properly protect it before going into those situations that can help people pretty well. So I like to educate people on that. And then I'm pretty
Tell us about it.
okay. So very good question. So there's different types of trust. So obviously there's domestic trust and there's foreign trust. The foreign trust is where you're going to go ahead and get the best asset protection. Okay, so foreign asset protection trust, FTAP. Excuse me, I got pens dropping. A foreign asset protection trust. So you're going to need to go and look into countries like the Cook Islands. So the Cook Islands, they do not respect U.S. laws. Got nothing to do with them. There has nothing to do with them. So if you set up a foreign trust in one of those countries, and if someone tries to go ahead and sue you for that money, they don't get access to it because it's not. You don't have any. You don't technically own it. It's being owned by your trust that you indirectly can control through the trustee. Does that make sense? Right. And then there is, a domestic asset protection trust in which you can set up in certain states all throughout the United States in which they don't respect other states' laws at all. Like some of those states like Nevada or Wyoming. So there's probably about 27 different states that, like, let's say if I go ahead and set up a trust in Wyoming or Nevada and, someone in the state of Texas, let's say let's say I set this trust up in 2020. Okay, let's just say hypothetically in 2020, I'm not married. All right. I set this trust up in 2020. All my assets are in here. My property, everything I have is in this type of trust, a domestic asset protection trust. Okay. This is all set up. This is a irrevocable trust as well. So this is set up. So you have to go through a trustee. There's ways you can still get money from the trust. It's just can't directly go to you. It can go to like your LLC or donations and stuff like that. Anyways, so now that's set up. I set up 5 years prior to me ever getting married. And then let's say now I get married in the state of Texas, and in the state of Texas, eventually I end up getting divorced. Well, as long as I never commingled my money from the trust with my spouse, she has absolutely no access, or depending upon, if you're a she and, you're married to a he, whatever, it doesn't matter. Your spouse has no access to it whatsoever just because it was properly set up beforehand. A lot of times people don't know this information because it's just not taught in schools. Like, and I don't know why. I think I know why. They don't want us to know. Let's just be real. Like, they don't want us to know. If you keep the people blind, it is what it is, right? And that's kind of what that is. So I just truly believe in that right there, protecting your assets properly and making sure no one gets access to it and has control over you.
It's interesting. So you use a trust not so much for estate planning for when you pass away, how your things are going to be divvied up, but more as a asset protection, in this lifetime from getting sued or anything like that. How many people that you're working with actually go with an irrevocable trust? Because most people want a living trust. That way they have the ability to change it
Yeah,
at any time, where with irrevocable, it becomes a bit more complicated. And I have to think about return on hassle.
absolutely. It is a lot more complicated, and that's not going to be for everyone. And just like everyone's health is different, everyone's finances is different as well, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say like every single person is going to do that. This is going to be for high net worth people, honestly.
Yeah.
High net worth people are going to do this. This is not your everyday person um, that doesn't have a high net worth that's going to do something like this. This is something that they're trying to protect, and that's so that they can pass it on to the next generations and things like that. So this is not going to be your average person. This is not going to be your person that's working a 9 to 5. This is probably going to be a business owner who has millions of dollars that does things like this. This isn't going to be for a person who has a regular job. They're probably going to do more like a revocable trust for sure. I 1,000% agree with what you're saying.
Good. And the only reason I bring that up, Tyler, is just because, especially when in finance, there's so many short clips, right? On Instagram or on TikTok or whatever, where they give a truth, but that truth doesn't apply to 99% of the population.
Absolutely. I agree.
So, yeah, when I used to work in estate planning, I'd have people come in saying, like, I want to do this and this and this, and I want to be able to do this. And it's like, lady or guy, like, based off of what I'm seeing in that terms of which assets you have, none of that applies to you.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
I'm glad that you've heard about it, but that you don't even have the money to make this work in any universe.
I agree with that. And you do see so many of those different types of clips on the internet. And I'm not going for clickbait, just throwing that out there. But you do see it. And one thing that I see a lot of that a lot of people are so rushing into without knowing everything about it is like an IUL. Like everyone on the internet's IUL, IUL, IUL. I go, okay, that's cool, but if it fits your situation. And for a lot of people, that might not fit their situation. So what you're talking about is totally true. Like what a lot of financial professionals do, and not all of us, but some of us do this, is they're given a diagnosis without a proper, um, they're prescribing something without a proper diagnosis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So they're
Yeah.
they're not doing a proper financial needs analysis and find out what all their needs are. They're just cookie cutter. This product fits. This product fits. This product fits. And that's not how you solve anyone's financial problems. Just throwing a product at them. It's really educating them on where they're at, what the end goal looks like, and then how we're going to get there. I think if we just throw products at people, we're doing people a disservice.
And just for our audience, IUL stands for Index Universal Life Insurance Policy, just so you guys are aware. But Tyler, why do you think that the industry is so set up for people to just throw products at somebody, or to kind of come in and say, hey, I have a hammer, or I kind of think of it this way. If I work in finance, I have a hammer, and if I have a hammer and only a hammer and no other tools, well, then everything starts to look like a nail. And you're trying to pound every single person, even this screw or this bolt or whatever, in like a hammer, and that's why things don't work. So what do you think is the issue with the industry itself? Or do you think it's just a personal problem on the financial professional?
I think it's a mixture of both. Like, this is the highest paying industry in the world. And unfortunately, some people come into this with the wrong intentions. And if you come into something with the wrong intentions, you're liable to do some wrong things. So I think it's that. So for one, for a lot of us that are in this industry, we are or we can be highly paid. So if you're highly paid and there's a product that you know that can pay you a lot, so some people stuff it down people's throats. I think also too, there is a lot of improper training too. A lot of improper training. People are not trained properly in this industry. So if they're not trained properly and you can make a lot of money doing some things, then some people are easily taken advantage of because most people don't have a financial education. And if they don't have a financial education, they don't know the difference between a stock and a bond, they can be taken advantage of. And that's, I think a problem also is too, is a lot of people can pass a test, but just because you pass a test doesn't mean you have the proper character.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, or even the proper knowledge. I
That too,
mean,
man. Shoot.
how
Yeah.
much of your licensing exams for most of them are just, do you know the laws? Like, do you know how to not get sued? Other than that, there's really not a lot of financial acumen that you need to have. Most of it is you're gonna get that on the job training,
Yep.
and like you said, if you're getting trained improperly, who knows what you're gonna get or what you're gonna end up with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even from when I was with JP Morgan, I think what do we have? Like maybe like a week and a half at a training center. And then it's like, hey, go talk to people. And then it's like, okay, sell our products. But it's like, and at that time I didn't know no better. How do I know if these are even the best products?
Mhm.
Because if I work for one company and I can only sell your product and your service, how do I know that this is the best out there? And I'm not trying to talk bad about JP Morgan because thank them for the opportunity. I'm just speaking the truth of what it was. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
that their job is to obviously promote their products and services as a branch, as a bank, as a financial institution. But how do I know that those are the best products out for the clients? I don't know because this is all I have to offer. Does that kind of make sense? So a lot of times, like I said, if I'm working for a particular company and all we can do is sell our product and services, we don't know if we're doing the absolute best for the client. We just know that this is what we have to offer. This is what we can do for you, and sign here on the dotted line. Like it's kind of what that is.
Yeah, it's really difficult, for our audience. It's called a captured agent, somebody who only has the ability to sell in one ecosystem.
Hmm.
And just like Tyler mentioned there, you can sometimes create a conflict of interest in that maybe there's better products out there in the world, but if all I know is these products, or all I can sell in general are these products, only I can make money off of these products. Well, my whole world gets narrowed down into these products.
Yep,
These are the only things I can help you with. Again, if I have a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail.
1,000%.
How do you think that the general audience, most people don't have the financial acumen, and, when they go and they talk to a professional, they hope that professional has the best of intentions in helping them. How can they start to skew out? Is this person here for me? Or even if they are here for me, do they have the best tools at their disposal? Do they have that Batman utility belt, or do they just have the hammer?
Oh man, well, I love that you brought up Batman because that's my guy.
Me too. I got a
Like,
tattoo of it and everything.
man, that's my favorite superhero by far. It's not even close. So how can a person tell the difference if they have a hammer or a utility belt based on the questions that they're asking you? What do they ask you? Are they ask you just about the right now? Or they ask you about the future? What are they trying to get you into? So what you have to decipher is what are their intentions, and then you could ask questions like this. So I'll give an example. So like on Instagram, or TikTok, we see a lot of people pushing an IUL. And I'm not saying that IUL is a bad product, but as Chris mentioned, it's not, a lot of people have a hammer and they see everybody as nails. Now, if I'm thinking about putting a client into an IUL, what is my purpose of this product? Is the purpose of this product, is it to go ahead and create a tax-free retirement for a person? I'm putting up quotations right now because a person could put money in and obviously can grow tax-free, stuff like that. But is the initial thing the protection of the life which it's intended to be? Is this for life insurance purposes first that has a cash value aspect, or is it to put somebody into a product in which you can make a lot of money by overcharging them for insurance? And now now they have a bunch of insurance and you're telling them they can get cash value, but they have to completely way overfund it than what their budget is, you know? So you start have to ask questions like, okay, what is your goal with me? Like I had, cause I come across people all the time. I'm speaking and talking to them. If a person can only save 200 to 300 bucks a month, and I'm telling them to get into a product in which 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 years from now, they need to start putting 1,000 bucks a month in order for it to go ahead and do what it's supposed to do, then I might be doing this person a disservice,
Yeah.
right?
There's a scary statistic that I want to bring up. I haven't looked at this in a while because I haven't done insurance in a while, but it was 90% of IULs never run through their whole funding because someone ends up not being able to pay it at some point, and then it ends up getting retroactive taken away. And that might be in the early years. That also might be when someone's closer to death, when they're in their 80s or their 90s, and they just now health insurance starts to cost, or other things start to cost money, and you can't afford to pay your insurance. So the thing you've been paying for your whole life for when you eventually pass, well, right at the end of it, it goes away.
Lapses. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And that's why I talk about like a disservice. So if a person is setting one of these up, for one, they need to make sure it's properly funded, properly structured, and then most importantly, properly maintained. Meaning that
Hmm.
a person should be meeting with their client a minimum of once a year, reviewing this account to making sure we're on track and on pace for what we're trying to do. And most people who set these accounts up, they give them up in the first 10 years. And as you and I both know, these type of accounts, they're not a short-term solution to a problem. This is more of a long-term account. So if I'm talking to a person about this type of product and they're trying to go ahead and put money in and take money out right away, and then you have bad agents saying that you can go ahead and do so, now our industry doesn't look as good as it should be because now we have agents that are disqualifying themselves by lying to people. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think people are doing a huge disservice upon that. How do we stop it, man? It's probably the biggest question I wish I knew. Like, how do we stop people from doing things like that? Because I don't think the product is bad. I just think the agents that are improperly misrepresented are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would, I'd take it back. There's an old quote. It's something to the effect of, it's impossible to get a man to understand that which his livelihood depends on his not understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's going through life like, hey, I only sell this product, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to begin to fathom that the product that I sell is not good for people because I have to keep this internal ethos that I am a good person. Therefore, I am doing the right thing. And if anyone was to show the counter narrative of, hey, this isn't right for these people, well, now my ego is now involved in it. Like, now you're not saying that that product's wrong. You're saying I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
So we fight against that tooth and nail. The only solution that I've been able to come up with is trying to do like a flat fee or a straight up, like, you pay me for my advice. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore I don't have any ability to even get paid a commission. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the fiduciary advisor kind of comes in.
Yeah.
It's completely different than the broker dealer. Not to say that either one is right or wrong, but I think it was Charlie Munger that once said, you show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome.
Mm-hmm. And then that structure works for you, which is awesome. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Actually, if it can help you sleep at night, go for it. If you, especially for me, for what I do, if I wouldn't put my mother or my grandparents in this, I'm not trying to do it for somebody. I think that's kind of the main thing. And if we have
Yeah.
that heart and that mindset, I think a lot of people will do well. But then unfortunately, there's some people who don't like their mom or their grandparents either. So they're gonna do they're gonna do what the heck they want to do. But if you have a proper character, you're gonna do the right thing by people.
Yeah. What do you think is one of the biggest things that, like, we should learn when we're young, with that financial education piece that you touched on earlier? We're not taught it from school. We're maybe taught it from our parents, but in general, you're getting taught most likely the wrong lessons because your parents don't even know about it. So what is the biggest thing that people just don't understand when it comes to money?
Oh, that's a very good question. The biggest thing people don't understand when it comes to money, I think, I think we don't teach budgeting early enough. Like that should be something we could start teaching. We could start teaching that in elementary school. Because if a lot of problems stem from people living paycheck to paycheck, barely making it by, that's typically a budgeting issue, right?
Hmm.
Like a lot of times people are living above their means unnecessarily. And especially in the society we live in, we live in the United States. You're in San Diego, dude. So you, I'm in Dallas as well. So this is not like, so I see it here too. People are always trying to keep up with the Joneses. Like this person has this, they're flaunting this on social media. I got to feel like I got to live up to that. So a lot of people, they don't understand budgeting or how to set a budget or there's some people don't know how to spell it to this point because they're just so bad at it. But I believe we should start teaching budgeting a lot earlier in school, in life for people, because most people don't learn about it until a lot of times after it's too late. After people start learning budgeting after they've been through so much financial trouble, instead of learning it before they even get finances in their hand. So if we can start that at an earlier age for a lot of people, I think it'd be a lot better because I remember, example, when I was in school, I learned 3.14 equals pi. I'm currently 38 years old. I haven't used that damn equation since I've been out of high school. I don't even know what that even means anymore, to be completely honest with you. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but in school they give you so much general information in which it may not apply to you when you actually go into life in the real world. So why not give us things that we can use or we can, apply to our lives at an earlier age that's going to go ahead and help us. And and if you can remind me what 3.14 and why I used it or why equals pi or whatever the heck that is, please refresh my memory, man, because I don't remember. But there's just so many things that we have to remember in school just to get a grade, just to get a grade. But it doesn't
Yeah.
apply to us once we go ahead and go into the real world, unless you're in that industry or mathematician, whatever that has to do with. But for me, it didn't do nothing for me. Okay, so I actually believe people need to learn budgeting a lot earlier in life when it comes to their money.
Why do you think the system is set up to not teach us how to work within it?
Control. They want
Control
control.
from who?
Ooh, now you try to get me in trouble now,
Mhm.
right? So it's like the blind leading the blind, right? So if you don't understand how to properly manage your money or properly budget or properly save, you can always rely on the system. Okay. So what is the system? The system is going to be the 9 to 5, the job. So how school is set up for people to come out of school and go what? Become employees. Because when you go to school, let's say school starts at 9 o'clock, let's say it ends at 5 o'clock. We know it doesn't happen exactly like that, but give an example. You're there for, 7 to 8 hours. So you go to school. After you go to elementary school, you go to middle school, you go to high school. This teaches the exact same thing over and over again. You have to be there at a certain time. If you're late, what do? You get a tardy, you can get in trouble, you can get truancy. Okay. And then they tell you when you can go ahead and have a break. They tell you when you can go ahead and eat lunch. They tell you when you can go ahead and leave. And now they're training you from the age of 5 until about 18 to do this. And then when you're done with it, it's like, okay, if I want to do something else in my life, I need to go ahead and go back to school, which is college. And college is, you might not be there for as many hours, but it is still, I have to be here at a certain time, have to be here for so long. They're training you to be an employee. And this didn't start happening until after the Industrial Revolution, because prior to that, people weren't forced to go to school. That's why there's some people out there like, oh, I got a fifth grade education. Like that, for us, that's not fathomable, but it ended up becoming into law that, you have to go to school and stuff like that. So prior to that, people would go ahead and stop going to school at a certain age. So they go ahead and work their family businesses. Well, after the Industrial Revolution, what happened was people were forced to go to school because they wanted to have control. So if I can control the people, if I can control how they make their income, how they make their money based upon them having a job, that I can go ahead and control their lives. Right. So now what ended up happening from there, you're going to school for the next, 12 plus years. From there, what do you want to do? Your first thought is to what? Go get a job. Right. Now I have a job. I'm doing the exact same thing. What I do, I have to show up at a certain time. If I don't show up at this certain time, I'm going to go ahead and get in trouble. They're going to tell me when to what? Go ahead and when I can take my lunch break, or I can go ahead and take a break, and when I can leave and go home. And on top of that, let's say if I do decide that I need to go ahead and leave because I have a family emergency, I have to ask somebody in order to do so. What do they do in school? Hey, teacher, can I go use the bathroom? What? That always sounded weird to me. I got to ask you to go use the restroom? Right. And that's why just for me, and I'm not trying to talk, if you have a job, God bless you, you're doing what you got to do to take care of yourself and your family. But just for me, when I worked for JP Morgan, just for me, I just couldn't stand being there. Because for one, I wasn't a good employee. What do I mean by that? I'd show up late, want to leave early, take longer lunches. I probably needed to. Right. But as an entrepreneur, I come early, want to stay long, forget I need to even eat. Okay, because I'm doing it for myself. It's just a whole different regimen for me. Um, so what I find out is that they're trying to control people through this process because they're teaching you exactly what to do to become have a job. Now, then there are people that in which if they come from an affluent family, they might send their kids to school, but it might be a private school, or they might be homeschooling them because why would I want someone else to educate my child that, how do I phrase this properly? Um, so would I prefer my child to go ahead and spend 6, 7, 8 hours a day with a complete stranger that knows nothing about business. All they're doing is teaching off of a curriculum given to them? Or would I prefer my child to understand my thought processes, my beliefs, my actions, and be after and think like after me? Does that make sense? So all of
Mhm.
my kids, at some point in time, I've homeschooled them before I sent them to an actual school because I prefer them to go ahead and mimic me as the man and leader in their life than a random stranger and get their thought process and things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Right. So I just think it's a system built on control. So if you can control people through their money, then unfortunately, a lot of times, then if we don't have enough free thinkers, people thinking outside the box, now we can go ahead and make sure that they're going to follow our system from A to Z. So what's their system from A to Z? Like go to school, after school, go to college, after college, go ahead and get a job. Now I get a job. What am I going to go ahead and do? Get my 401k, get my benefits, and stay here for the next 30 years. Right. Pay bills, go on a couple of nice vacations, and die. What impact did you leave on this world? What did you do? You made some good money. That's awesome. People make money. But what did you do to leave an impact? And I just find out that a lot of people that are leaving impact are entrepreneurs. We're the ones that are changing the world. When people look at, you know, business owners or businesses that are doing well, employees do the day to day, but entrepreneurs, the business owners, are the ones that are changing the world.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Have you found that most entrepreneurs, they view money differently, or that they're just better with money than those who aren't entrepreneurs?
Nah, hell no. No, hell no. Just because you're an entrepreneur don't mean you're better with money than a person who has a job. Absolutely not. I think it's still a learning process. There are a lot of entrepreneurs that make a bunch of money that at the end of the month they're still broke. Because there are and ladies and gentlemen who are listening, just because you're a high income earner does not mean you're good with money. That just means you know how to make it. There's a difference between making it and keeping it. Totally different conversation. A lot of people make money. A lot of people don't know how to keep it though, because unfortunately lifestyle creeps in. So people will start making more money. What do they automatically do? Upgrade their lifestyle way too quickly. And then when you upgrade your lifestyle way too quickly, you end up still being broke because you're just paying for more stuff because you got more money instead of delayed gratification. I think if we went back to more people having delayed gratification, there probably wouldn't be as much debt and things like that we have as a society. Because you're delaying what you're trying to do. Instead, people are living above their means. So a person who has a job compared to an entrepreneur, that don't mean that the entrepreneur is better with their money. That just means they're willing to take more risk with as far as that. That's all that means. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily a better money management person or anything like that.
And the only reason I bring that up is I just want to make sure our listeners here, it doesn't matter if you're W-2, it doesn't matter if you're 1099, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur on your own. Being good with money has nothing to do with those skills. Like, those are completely different skills. I've helped people that are their own bosses and they are terrible with money. I've worked with people that are employees and just show up to work every day and they're great with their money, and vice versa. Everything is a little bit different. So you have to be able to look at the individual. I feel like sometimes we lose that through the plot. We start to see everybody that is an entrepreneur is put in the good bucket. Everyone that might be W-2 is put in the bad bucket, or vice versa. And I'm just trying to, my biggest thing on our podcast is to try to just normalize these things so people can understand that, hey, I see myself in here. I can be good with money too. Doesn't matter what my background is.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree with that because I met people who've make $50,000, $60,000 a month, and that by the next month they broke again just because they got to go make it again. You know what I mean? So that's not just because you make it don't mean you know how to keep it. Absolutely not.
Yeah. So I'm gonna guess that your childhood growing up was probably a little bit chaotic. I know you said your brother was shot 5 times, and a lot of them, all your buddies were either dead or in jail.
Yeah.
I find it very not funny, but our backgrounds are very similar in a lot of regards in that way. Just like you, I got a degree in psychology. I wanted to be a well, not marriage and family therapy. I wanted to work with those with disorders.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until my final year that I realized, like, oh, this isn't for me either, and decided I need to make a big shift. Um, what is it that you think, when you look back on your childhood, like from the communities that we kind of came from, no one really being able to help them, or when they did seek help, it was like the worst of the worst people came out to like help those groups
Mm-hmm.
of kind of marginalized groups to like help them figure it out. But in truth, they were just putting them deeper in the hole.
Yeah. Um, rephrase that for me. I want to make sure. I'm gonna make sure I understand that.
Yeah, I feel like let's put it this way. What do you think the most important thing is, like for those who are born into that place in life,
Mm-hmm.
where they're not affluent, they're basically making their paycheck to paycheck. Who is it that they go and they try to seek out advice from, or where do they start
Mm-hmm.
to like seek out advice from in order to not get bamboozled? Because from what I've seen growing up, and I'm sure you may have seen the same thing, is you go to your friend, you go to somebody that is a friend of a friend to be helped out, but in
Mm-hmm.
truth, you're getting sold a policy, you're getting sold something that isn't there to actually help you. So while you think you're making financial progress, you're actually digging yourself into a worse place. And I'll give an
Mm-hmm.
example. When I was starting out in finance, I met this young lady. She was 21 years old, just out of college. And, we were talking about her budget. She's sitting there. She's like, yeah, I barely have enough money to eat. I have barely enough money to put money in my car. Like, I have to sometimes ride my bike to work and stuff like that. So we're going through her budget, and I see that she's paying for a whole life policy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, like, what's up with this whole life policy? And she's like, well, I was told by my financial advisor that that's something that I needed in case I died. I want my mom to be able to get some money to bury me and stuff like that. And that's when I think that, these marginalized groups of people, when they think of financial advice, they think of that. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
good money management,
Mm-hmm.
rather than, hey, let's focus on the habits. Let's focus on this. And then when we get there, when you have dependence on you, now we can talk about life insurance. Now we can talk about these other things. But if we're moving it up to right now, well, you're putting the cart before the horse. You're basically shooting the horse and like saying, why is it not working?
Yeah, that's true, man. I think a lot of, especially from where I grew up, um, before getting in this industry, like I already had but when I was 22, when I was, trying to work for JP Morgan, I already had 2 kids. Like I was 22 years old with 2 kids, with a third on the way. By the time I was 25, I had 4 kids. Right. But at that time, working for, I didn't even have basic life insurance at that time. No one had talked to me about it, which is crazy because I had 4 kids and a spouse, and no one had ever talked to me about, you know, protecting them. And then there are instances like you just mentioned in which people get into things like that too early because they were sold on the concept of what it is, but not understand exactly what the product is. Does that make sense? Hopefully, like
It
you're
does.
talking about a person buying a whole life policy at 21 years old. Well, they probably could have just saved some money and got a term. like if they really needed life insurance, and does the 21-year-old need to protect her mom?
Nope.
Does that make sense? Like that doesn't. So it sounds like like we talked about earlier, people are getting pushed products. Unfortunately, the problem in our industry is that the big financial institutions, typically, if you don't have a lot of money, they don't want to sit and talk with you. Right. So then a person coming from my neighborhood and where I grew up from, they're just trying to seek any type of help. And the person that might be coming by, if unfortunately, if they are given negative advice, they're just happy they're getting advice. Because if they walk into Morgan Stanley or Charles Schwab or someone like that, and they're like, "Hey, I got $100 a month. What can I do?" And not talking down on those companies or anything like that. Some of those advisors might be, well, to sit down with me, you have to have $250,000.
Mhm.
And for some of us, we can't fathom having that because you just said she's barely eating, right? So
Yeah.
it's a dilemma, man, because in our industry, like we mentioned, you can make quite a bit, but at the same time, the middle to lower class is not always helped. So then what do? A lot of times we go on the internet and we're on social media and we're hearing these financial gurus speak, quotation marks around the guru, and we hear the concept that they're talking about. We're like, shoot, that sounds better than what I got currently right now. I got $15 in my savings account. You know what I mean? They're just trying to figure out something better. So a lot of times I think people are misguided, misled because the big financial institutions are not always accepting the middle and lower class. And then on top of that, the middle or lower class, they're just trying to seek any type of help and not knowing that, let's just say a person and like the lady that you mentioned, why can't she just start putting money into a Roth? Like if she needs to start saying, why couldn't she just do that? Why couldn't she
And
just
that's what we talked about. But had she never met me, like, who knows where she would be? And that's my biggest concern. That's the reason I ask you, like, where, Tyler, can someone start? Like, where do they even begin to go down the rabbit hole? Because I remember me growing up and asking my parents about money or investing. Like, hey, what is investing? Like, oh, don't do that. Like, that's it. It's a gamble. Like, it's might as well just go to the casino and put it on red. And so you take these things through life and you don't really understand anything. And it's like I just take all these things as truth. And until you can start to question what you believe as to be reality, you're going to be stuck in the matrix.
Yeah,
And I think your and my goal, and I'll state my goal directly, is to get money out of the way so people can live their best lives.
1,000%.
And I feel the only way to do that is to help them see or to get out of the matrix. I feel like most people, especially those that are disenfranchised, those that came from neighborhoods like you and I, they are stuck in this frame of reference that's just awful. And how do they even begin to question or even begin to open it up? How did you begin to open up and see that the world was maybe bigger than what you thought it was?
The thing with me, man, I've always been a dreamer, man. Like I've always thought big. I always knew there was more. Just because I always the type I wasn't gonna let my environment hinder who I was gonna be in life. Now I'll be completely like, don't get me wrong. I was a product of my environment. I'm happy I got out, but I wasn't a good kid either. Like I was a bad kid. I ain't gonna lie. Like like I was a product of my environment. I was a bad kid as well. The difference between me and a lot of people is I just didn't get caught. Like, that was kind of that was the situation there. And thank God I was good at sports. So like I mentioned earlier, sports really really helped me. And my way out was always just thinking like, I'm going to the NFL. That was always my thought process. Like, I'm going to the NFL. And how am I going to get there? I knew I had to go to college in order to get there. Now, although I was in high school, I did very well in high school and stuff like that. I had horrible grades. Horrible. And unfortunately, I didn't have anyone mentor me like, hey, if you want to go to college and play football, you need to have better grades. It was just, no, there was just no guidance for that. As far as for us, there's just like, okay, I play football. I'm doing enough to be eligible to keep playing each season. Hopefully someone's going to pick me up. And come my junior year, letters started flowing in from different colleges to potentially come play football at. And what they do is, so back then they sent letters. Nowadays they'll message you on Twitter. You know what I mean? It's so different. They sent you letters of a questionnaire you need to fill out, and because they had already seen you play, but now they're just trying to check on the grades. So when I sent those questionnaires back, I'd never get a response back. I had letters from all countries all across the country for football. And then once, they let you know about your grades, like, okay, you can't come here. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? And then I ended up going to junior college. Junior college, I played football there. And from there, I ended up getting a scholarship to play at the University of St. Mary's. But my senior year of high school was the eye opener for me. And it couldn't have been nothing more than God just telling me to separate from people that were not good influences, were not good associations, they just weren't good people. And I just started separating myself from these people, slowly but surely. But by the time, like, I want to say maybe January to February of my senior year, I just disassociated with a lot of people. I'd go to school. I had only 3 classes, so I was done by like, before lunch, I was done with school. And then I go to work. I worked at McDonald's. It was my very first job. Flipping burgers at McDonald's. So I go to McDonald's, go to my job at McDonald's and work, and then go home and do what I do from there. So I just, and on top of that, I live far from the school that I attended. So my school that I attended was pretty far from the house I lived at. And even though, which looking back, the school that I went to wasn't a good school at all, but the schools near where I live were even worse. Right. So I went to a high school called Independence High School in San Jose, California. There's, at that time when I graduated, we had 6,000 kids at the school. So very large school in California. Initially, it was supposed to be a junior college, but then it turned into a high school. So anyways, so I went to a pretty large school. My graduating class had close to 800 kids in it, and over 200 didn't graduate. So we would have had closer to 1,000. We would have had closer to 1,000 plus that would have graduated. So I was in an environment in which, for one, there was a fight every single day of my high school career. Every single day there was a fight. Now, if my friends were in the fight, I didn't care. Kind of how that was, right? But also at the school as well, people sold drugs. People sold drugs and stuff like that. So it wasn't the best environment. I don't know how I even got to this. How did I get here, Chris? To the story. But anyways, so the environment wasn't the best at all. And I just know I had to separate myself from that environment. So I ended up going ahead and separating from those people, getting out of that environment and going to junior college. My junior college was still in the Bay Area, but I was in Los Altos, California, which is an affluent area in the Bay Area. Los Altos is near Mountain View, near Palo Alto, near Sunnyvale, Cupertino, all in that area. The nice area, just put it that way. The affluent area, the suburbs, is basically where that was. So I ended up going to school out there, and that started separating me from those people that I was always around. Because for one, the school was so far from where I lived and where I went to high school and where I grew up and the people I was around. And the more that I was not around those people, it just gave me a better opportunity for me to get out. And eventually I ended up, getting a scholarship to play football at the University of St. Mary's in Kansas. And, you go off to Kansas, you're really far away from California. So by that time, I had just separated myself from that association so much. And I've always been told, so if you look at your 5 closest friends, right, your associations, and I'll tell you your life and your future and things like that. So the road I was going down, one of the people that I was always around and was hanging out with, a very close friend of mine, known him for years from middle school and stuff like that, just a year and a half ago was shot 12 times. A year and a half ago, I'm 38 now. A year and a half ago, 36. We still doing something like this. It's crazy to me. Shot, and he lived. He didn't even die. Well, crazy. People be getting shot and living, but now he's in prison because he has a 3rd strike. You know what I mean?
And we really are the aggregate of the 5 people we spend the most time with, and I think it's so important that you mentioned that, because I think that's one of the hardest things for people that come out of not great areas, is that it's hard to change. It's hard for any human being to change, but sometimes if you want a different life, you need to change, because sticking inside the same situation with your old homies and just trying to hope that everything's going to work out, most of the times it's not, because you don't have the propensity to change if you're in the same stuff over and over and over again. That's why travel, getting away, is so important. Tyler, now that you kind of told me a little bit about that, could you tell me about what was it, or what was the catalyst that got you into money? Was it JP Morgan specifically, or what was it that's like, I want to start to learn this stuff? Because if you come from the hood, if you come from where you and I came from, money, that's something you gamble with. That's something that you once you get it, you better spend it immediately, because someone's going to come take it from you. It's not a thing that you can start to manipulate and start to understand, oh, this is a tool and I can add this to my belt too. And not just blow it on dumb crap the moment I get it.
1,000%. Well, when I had figured out, because I mentioned before, I wanted to be a marriage counselor. And when I figured out I didn't want to do that, but I found the number one reason that people were splitting up was money, that also got me more intrigued about money, and going kind of down this rabbit hole of working in money. And at that point in time, just me wanting to be in it didn't mean I knew where to start. It was just like my prayer life and me praying and seeking God. And that really changed my life. To talk about me just leaving California, nah, the Lord Jesus Christ saved my life, to be completely honest with you. That I had to pray. I have a praying mom, and I've had a praying grandma my whole life. My grandma's since, my grandmas have since passed, but my mom has always been praying for me. So shout out to moms. That really saved my life, getting me away from that. And then getting me into finances was me seeking God and praying and being told to go apply and stuff like that. Cause I didn't know where to get started. I just knew I was supposed to be in it. Didn't know exactly the magnitude of what I was going to be, or even being it this long. I didn't think I was going to be it this long. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's for sure. I wasn't sure. And there's days in which I didn't know if I still wanted to even continue to do this. Because for those that are listening, this is not an easy profession to be in, by no means. Like it's funny because almost everyone needs help with their finances, but not everyone wants help with their finances. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. Does that make sense, Chris?
No, it makes complete sense. It's everyone needs help, but no one is willing to admit that they need help.
Ego. There we go. That's what it is. A lot of, especially men, we have egos. Like I've noticed so many times, like when I'm sitting down with a couple, the wife is willing to share everything, but the husband's like, he's in such denial. I'm like, and it kind of is what it is, and I get it. But it's not an easy industry to be in. So me getting in here and being in it for so long, it's a testament to for one, not ever wanting to give up. My parents never let me give up in anything. Like if I've just never been a quitter. And as I've gotten older, I've noticed how many adults are quitters. It's just crazy. But me being able to be in this industry was nothing but me seeking God and praying and things like that. So I never expect to be here because, like you said, like money usually when it was in my pockets would usually be gone pretty quickly. For the most part for me growing up, and every now and then, I hold on to a few bucks here and there, but for the most part, it wasn't something that was just. It wasn't really conversation in my household growing up. Money wasn't because the lack of it. For the most part, we didn't have much of it. Me growing up, at one point in time, my dad, I want to say in the early 90s. And I think the most he probably made was like, he made 1 year, he might've made 6 figures, maybe once. And after that, he had got laid off because they had went ahead and fired him and hired 2 younger guys, paid them each half of what he made. And then from there, my dad had always done like weird jobs, you know what I mean? Like one time he was a janitor at a church, and one time he was cleaning tennis courts. Like I'd help him clean tennis courts on Saturday mornings after my high school football games. Right. So he'd always be doing like these odd type jobs. And then at one point in time, my dad was like a security guard at like you know what DD's is? It's a store. Anyway, it's like a thrifting store or whatever. So he'd do all these different type of little weird jobs and stuff like that. So we didn't really have much, but at the same time, they still always made a way for me. Like my parents still always. So I don't know thank God they still. If I needed new cleats, whatever, they'd figure out a way to get me the cleats or whatever. They poured into me. So I'd say this: we might not have had a lot of money growing up, but I still had some very good parents, if that makes sense, right?
Now that I've understand a little bit from where you come from and some of the changes you made once going to JP Morgan, could you tell me what was some of the hardest, and I think this is important for our listeners, maybe those who came from backgrounds like us and don't see themselves ever being quote unquote good with money because of their background. I just don't want that to ever hold somebody back, like that you can start today. So what was one of the hardest lessons for you to unlearn from your
Ooh,
childhood that you thought like this is a money truth, and then you like came to you switch the page, you're like, oh, actually, what I thought and what reality is are completely different things.
one thing I always like um, that people around me always talked about was like how it's hard to get money, or money is, money doesn't grow on trees, or you know, uh, you might as well spend it because you can't take it with you, and live for the now, not for the future. Like all that crap that I believed growing up was not true at all. Like money does not have to be hard to get. I think we create a mindset in our head about how hard money can be based upon how we grew up and some of the trauma that we went through. So if that trauma is carried with you for into your adulthood, and you're still thinking it's hard to get money, or money doesn't come easy, or money doesn't grow on trees, I think for myself, I had to shift that mindset and start thinking like, you know, working at JP Morgan, I'm seeing people with $1 million accounts and this and that. So I started asking questions. How did you get this? How did you do that? And what I started finding out was they were open to talking to me and pouring into me. And what I started finding out that people who are successful, they want other people to be successful. Now, I can't say 100% of them, but a good 90+% of people who are successful want to see other people become successful as well. So I just started asking questions, tell me about how you did this or how you did that. And I just started finding, and this is just my experience. I can't speak on everyone's experience. they were entrepreneurs. Those people that they were entrepreneurs, and that's what kind of shifted my mind. And I read a book that I recommend everyone read. And it's not the Bible, but I do recommend the Bible as well. But it's a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and that's still to this day one of my favorite books. That and 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class by Steve Siebold. Those two books right there completely changed my life. And the Rich Dad Poor Dad book by Robert Kiyosaki, he just talks about in his lifetime how his poor dad thought and the concept that he taught him compared to his rich dad, which is his best friend's dad. And just reading that book and just opened up my mind, just thinking about, I need to be an entrepreneur. Like I can't do this 9 to 5, stuff or whatever. And that was just for me. But the people that I had come encounter with that were my clients at JP Morgan that had majority of the money were entrepreneurs. And then I just saw their lifestyle too. Like I'm going golfing on a Thursday morning. Huh? Right. And I remember one of my clients came in and he gifted me some golf clubs. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna gift you these. I like you. You've been good to me." He gave me some Pings golf clubs and was like, "Hey, I wasn't gonna give them to my daughter, but I think you'd do better with them." At that point in time, I've never golfed a day in my life. Like I've been to we have it in Northern California, Golfland. You ever heard of Golfland?
No, I lived in Northern California. I don't remember a golf land.
Okay, so Golfland, it's just a miniature golf course. You have it's the goofy little golf course, miniature golf as you play, stuff like that. That's the only time I ever played golf in my life was at that. I'd never been to like a driving range, never went to an actual golf course. Dude gifted me some clubs. The clubs had to be worth, close to $5,000. And this dude just gave them to me. And I'm just like, "Oh, okay, thank you." They're like, "Yeah, so when are you gonna go golfing?" He was talking to me like I knew nothing about the sport other than miniature golf. And I was like, "Well, I got clubs. I guess I got to start golfing." And one of my coworkers kind of introduced me to the game, and we started playing here and there, and that was kind of cool. But then I started finding out that this is the sport that a lot of affluent people play was golf. And I figured out the reason why I had never played golf is because I came from the hood and we were broke growing up. And that's not that's an affluent sport, and an uninfluenced sport in our communities is basketball. All you need is a hoop and a ball. You know what I mean? So there's so many parks that have hoops and the balls. Not everywhere has golf courses per se. And I just started learning that from these people. I'd pick up what they were putting down. They'd come in, they'd talk to me, I'd ask questions. I'd read books, and that just got me on the curiosity page of finances and changing my mindset on things.
Nice. How long do you think that process took for you to like really shift your mindset to be like, hey, I can be good with this money stuff. I can figure this out.
A year. I'd worked for JP Morgan for a year when I figured out like I could probably do this on my own. I learned a lot here. I could probably do this on my own. I didn't leave after a year. That's when I just figured out I could probably do it on my own after a year. I was there for about 2 years before I ended up leaving and going on my own. But that's kind of what it took. It took about a year. It took about a year of learning. It took about a year of asking questions, talking to people that are doing a lot better than me, getting into better circles as well. It took about a year.
Okay. And would you say one of the most important things in that was staying humble, like trying to always be a learner instead of saying like, "Oh, I know, I know with certainty what things are," because I feel like that's one of the hardest things when you meet people from the hood is like it's a survival mechanism. As you go through life, like you have to know for certain. Like even when you walk through the hood, like and I do it myself. I remember one time my wife and I we flew to Dubai and we landed. And I was walking with purpose. Like I knew exactly where I was going and I had no idea. Like you see a person walking to the airport that's lost, but they don't look lost. You're like, that guy's from the hood because you have to be. You got to be certain on everything that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard for people that come from that background to admit like, okay, I don't know anything. I need to be able to learn. How did you overcome that?
That's a very good question. And the way I think I've learned is this, and I'll be honest, I've been confident my whole life, which is, I think, an advantage. But also, my parents have always taught me to be humble. I don't know everything. I never will, and I don't proclaim that. I don't know everything about finances, ladies and gentlemen who are listening to this call. I do not know everything. I know what I know. The good news, I know who knows what I don't know, and that's all I need to know. right? For the most part. But I'd say I've always had a learning spirit, meaning that I've always been wanting to seek knowledge and understand things. I don't know everything, and I don't ever proclaim to. And I think people who think that they do, typically that's kind of their downfalls a lot of times. Because if we think we know everything, we think we're always the smartest person in the room. I don't think that's ever going to be a benefit. So I've always had a learner's mentality because I just always want to get better. I've always just want to get better. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm good at finances. I understand it. I'm very good at, but this is not finances is not my calling. It's what I do. Does that make sense? Right.
Yeah.
My calling is, and what I really love to do is public speaking. Like that's what I do. Going to schools and speaking to kids and colleges and talking with people and empowering them and inspiring them and letting them know they can, the next generation is theirs and they're the future, things like that. So that's my calling. These finances, I have to understand it and learn it because I live in a world in which you need finances to survive. So if
Yep.
this is a skill that I know that I need, I might as well learn it. And why not get paid to teach it to other people as well? Does that make sense? Oh, excuse me.
It does. Speaking of public speaking, I know that you have a podcast, Money Masters podcast. Can you tell myself and the audience a little bit about it? What do you typically discuss? What kind of things do you like to talk about on there?
Man, we talk about money. But yeah, on the Money Master podcast, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, I do have a podcast, Money Master Podcast, and I interview entrepreneurs, business owners, people who've done something, and I get their perspective on where they came from, talk about their journeys, what they're doing now, their vision, where they see themselves, and they give nuggets about how they got to where they were at. So I do a lot of that, and then I give teach financial concepts, budgeting, getting out of debt, how to properly save, all that. I talk about some the trust stuff on there. So I talk finances and money. Then I think what else should I talk? I think my last episode I was talking about AI versus humans, how the job market is now. Like, hey, where are you at? Right now, because that's what it is. It's humans versus AI. And unless you understand how to progress with it, you're going to be out of a job. I remember, keep bringing up JP Morgan. This is probably the most I've talked about them since I've left him. Is that I remember when I was there, that was back when there were a bunch of tellers. Like the branch would have, 5, 6 tellers at a time. People come up and they go get their help. Now most branches have maybe 2 or 3. All right. And I remember telling them back then, I was like, hey, you guys probably need to become a banker or an advisor or something. Otherwise, you're going to be out of a job. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? I said, well, they're installing these machines that can do everything that you can do. And it might cost them $25,000 for this machine, but they pay that one time and that's good for the next 10 to 15 years. They got to keep paying year after year after year. What do you think is going to happen? It's the writing's on the wall. It's going to replace you. And, I talk about that, mention that to them, and then fast forward, and now starting to, AI starting to replace a lot of jobs that humans do. So I talk about things like that and interview people, and I've interviewed professional athletes as well, have them on the show, talk about their financial journey and understanding money, and we dig into things like that.
Wonderful. I look forward to hearing more from it. And, at some point, I'm actually going to be on the podcast myself. So we get to have that conversation as well.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
I know a lot of people, they think, oh, this guy's a podcast, therefore he must know everything. But in truth, most podcasters, like, we're figuring it out too. Like we're on that journey. What are some of the top lessons you've learned while doing your own podcast from your guests or just from talking it out to a microphone and being like, oh my God, I just came to a realization as like legitimately in front of camera while I was doing the podcast?
Yeah, man, I've learned so much from the different guests that I've had. A recent guest that I had, she's what's called the apartment queen. Shout out to her. And she was just talking about the different ways on how to get into multifamily investing and how she does and how she helps communities and how she's big on helping women get into investing and going ahead and making sure that because most women most women outlive their spouse. Okay. Women tend to live longer than us. But unfortunately, just because they live longer, that means a lot of them end up going bankrupt afterwards because they weren't taught about money. So she's trying to change that aspect of things. And I just love learning that from her and listening to her, which was speaking about it. Then I had another gentleman on the show. And what this just taught me, man, there's like, there's never been a test in society that can test the heart of a champion. And there's a gentleman who's on my show who overdosed 53 times.
Commitment.
But now he's overcome that, and now he's owns a business, and now he has also owns 7 homes, and he also has a charity that helps people with addictions and get over addictions, and has also a business that helps people when it comes to testing for HIV and getting the right proper medication. And he was actually Mr. Oklahoma as well, in which, I mean, he won like a bodybuilding competition, stuff like that. So he just completely changed his life around. So learning this from these different types of people, it just makes me realize, like, man, I think I went through some stuff in my life. What do they say? Like, if you have a problem, let's say there's 100 people in a room, everyone goes and puts their problem up on a board. After you start seeing everyone else, I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and take mine back. I'm okay, right? So I've just learned so much what people have overcome in their lifetime, and just how strong people can be mentally. And that just pushed me, like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing my calling. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is out here talking and inspiring and empowering people, and just not to give up. My podcast isn't where I believe it should be yet, but one day it will be. And it's just the fortitude of not giving up.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from? I feel like that's the hardest thing, is to get people to believe in themselves, to keep on going, even when things aren't working out. Because typically when someone formulates a hypothesis, I'm going to start this podcast, I'm going to start my business, and it'll work out because in my brain, I control all these variables. I know what's going to happen, but in truth, you control none of the variables.
None.
The moment you get to market, like, that's, as an entrepreneur, as a fellow entrepreneur, the best feeling is when you're working on it and you are so certain it's going to work. Like, you're like, man, this marketing strategy, whatever, it's going to work. And you're like, that's the best feeling. And then you launch it and it just goes to shit. And you're like, damn it. Like, but that was the best feeling right before the launch is the greatest feeling. How do you get someone to fall in love with that rather than falling in love with the outcome?
Ooh. Like, you're talking like the dirt, like fall in love with the dirty, like the actual work.
But the dirty is where it is. Like, the dirty is what you got to do.
This is us doing the dirty right now for your podcast. You know what I mean? I think you have to have the vision of what you want, knowing it, but you can't worry about the how to. Like, you have to have your mind on your vision, knowing where you're going, but not knowing the how to is probably what disturbs most of us. Okay, kind of like, give an example. So back in December, I was driving from Frisco, Texas, where I reside, to Oklahoma for my oldest son. He had a college visit for football or whatever, and we had to leave at 3:30 in the morning because we had to be in Oklahoma at this at the location by 8 a.m. So it's about 4 hours away or whatever. But just so happens that day there was the most amount of fog I've ever seen in my life driving up there, right? And so it's me, my oldest son, my older daughter, and my youngest son. So the 4 of us are going up there, and they're all asleep in the car, and I'm driving. And the thing is, as I'm driving, I can't see no more than maybe 10 or 15 feet ahead of me. And I'm just trusting that the little white lines on the road are going to help get me to where I got to go. Okay. The same thing comes for a person's vision. You know where you have to be, but you don't know exactly all the steps that are going to be 100 feet ahead of you. You just know the step that you have to take right now. And for me, making sure, like, hey, I got to continuously make this step because I have vision of where I'm going. I think everyone has sight. Not enough people have vision. Does that make sense? A lot of people have sight. Everyone could see things. I could see you right now, as we're here talking on a podcast, but not everyone has vision of where they're going. And for those of you who do have vision of where you're going, you have to hold on to that, but no, there's going to be steps that you're going to need to take in order to get there. And that's those steps. There are going to be days that are better than most. And there are going to be some days that just straight up suck ass. And those days in which you don't feel like your best self, you don't feel like you are exactly where you need to be, you have to still hold on to that vision of where you're going and constantly make sure that you're um, being proactive on getting towards that. And for me, and I believe for you as well, Chris, you're just pushing through. You're pushing through regardless. There's days in which I'm pretty sure you probably don't feel like recording. But it's like, you know what? I gotta put content out. I gotta make sure that I deliver not just for myself, but also for my audience. And I have a vision of where this is supposed to be. Hopefully that made sense.
It does. Could you tell me, and this is probably the hardest question I'm going to ask you because there really isn't a right answer or a wrong answer here, but as you were talking, it kind of reminds me of Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And I feel like that's one of the hardest things to come with is having that vision, having that why. How do people even begin to, like, maybe they hear you say it, like, Tyler, like, I want to have a vision. I see stuff, but I don't know how to even get there. Like, how do you even begin to formulate the vision that you want for your life so you even know what goals you want to attain? Because most people are just living habitually.
Yeah.
They're just reacting. You're going through stimulus response, but you're never actually trying to get anywhere with the exception of to the next moment.
Yeah. I think probably one of the hardest things for people, okay, they say this, the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you figure out why. I think there are billions of people on the planet that don't know why they're on this planet still. They don't know their purpose. So until you figure out your purpose, it's hard to kind of determine your why. Okay, so because you could be doing things like, hey, I want more money. Okay, cool. Then once you get the money, then what? What's going to keep driving? What's going to keep motivating you? Because if money's the only motivation, once you have it, you're not going to want to do what you're doing anymore. Okay, so I think a lot of people need to figure out why, what's their purpose. And once you figure out your purpose, then you can start figuring out, okay, if this is my purpose, this is what I've been called to do in life, this is why I'm here. Now, this is my why. Now, my why could be, all right, I want to make sure that I leave a legacy for my kids. And legacy is not always about money. Money can be a part of legacy, but what are the values I want to leave off to my kids? What are the things I want to install into their character? What type of, what type of legacy do I want my grandchildren to know me by? Things like that. So now that I've found out what my purpose is, I can start determining, okay, my why. Now, once you found your why, how do you even find your why? For me, finding my why
Before we go there, Tyler,
yeah.
how do you even find your purpose?
Oh, that's a deep question. There's this book that, I'm going to get this right here. Give me a second, man. Oh. Now, there's a book by a gentleman named Rick Warren called The Purpose Driven Life. I'd recommend this to every single person. Okay. And he goes deep into figuring out what your purpose is. Now, how do I determine my purpose? I just start thinking about what do I love doing, in which I don't even, if I didn't get paid for it, I'd still love doing it. Now, throughout my life, I always thought I was going to play football. Football. And when I found out I'm not going to play football for a living, at least, what's next? What's next? And I thought it was finances. Okay, finances. I started thinking, do I enjoy helping people with their finances? Yeah. Am I good at it? Yeah. Would I do it for free? Probably not. Right? I'm good at it. Do I want to do it for free? Nah, probably not. No, because this takes work. And I started thinking about, when I was in school or when I played football, and let's just say before the game, I spoke to the team and people would get inspired and they'd be ready to quote unquote run through a wall. And I started how I felt after I gave that speech or gave that talk and how it made me feel and how I enjoyed it. And I was like, I did that for free. And then I started thinking about the times I've spoken at schools for children or students, and I did it for free. And I still felt good about it. Or anytime I'd be speaking in a pub, at a church or anything where it may be, and I did it for free, and I still felt good and gratitude about it. And I was like, that's what I've been called to do. And the Lord just started speaking to me. This is, I've blessed your mouth to do this, to speak to people, to lead them, to guide them into truth and empower them to do better and become a better person and inspire them. And I was like, that's the legacy that I want to leave. is through my speaking, inspire people to go after their whys or go after their dreams or go after their goals. Dr. Martin Luther King said this. He said, most men and women in our society, they die at the age of 18 to 25. But we don't get around buried into the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. And what that means is most people stop living and they just start surviving. Like people are living paycheck to paycheck, barely making a buy. You know why? Because they're not living in their purpose or their calling. They're just doing something to just go ahead and make some money. And that's okay, but they just haven't figured out their why yet. And I want to empower people to figure that out, to go after their dreams and go after their goals, go after their vision. And a lot of times people don't know what that is just because they get stuck in the rat race and they stop even thinking about that stuff. They think that age can hold them back from their calling. What is it? I think the Colonel Sanders started KFC like in the 70s. Is that right?
It was pretty old.
Yeah,
I think it was in
he
his
said
late
pretty old.
60s. Yeah.
Exactly.
It was pretty old. It was late 60s, but yeah, he was.
He was up there, right? So
Yeah.
he figured out, man, I got this chicken recipe. I'm gonna put it out there. I don't care what age I am. And I think some people get held back based on ageism. They think they're either too old or too young. I think some people, they worry about also, let's say, because their vision or their what they need to do in life, they need money for it. So they limit themselves to the resource that they can only see in their hands instead of knowing that people, if you have the proper business plan, someone might be willing to invest into you. So I just think a lot of people are, here's the thing, because you asked this a very simple question. What holds people back from going after their purpose or finding their purpose? Fear.
There it is. Fear of failure.
Fear, man. Fear. False evidence appearing real. I could have summed all that up in just that word, fear. People are fearful. And unfortunately, a lot of people live off of fear. And I'm a person that I do have fears, but I'm not going to let my fears distract me from what I need to be in life. And I'm a believer in Christ. And I believe there's a somewhere in Timothy, says God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. And I truly believe that. So I'm not going to be living off of fear. And then also in the Bible, it says, do not be afraid or do not fear 365 times. So that's a daily reminder not to fear. But some of us live off of fear. It thrives in our lives, unfortunately. And I just refuse. I'm going to live by faith.
Yeah. Tyler, if you can go back to yourself at 22 years old, say you didn't get that JP Morgan job, say that you only had that one interview where the guy was just a complete ass to you and you never got a call back from Jenny. If you can go back to yourself, to that man right then, 22 years old, had a bad experience, what advice would you give to yourself at that stage to hopefully put yourself on the right trajectory, on a path that you would be happy with?
Don't give up. Don't give up. I remember that day like it was yesterday, driving back home from that freaking interview. I was just like, I'm not getting this job. I was hurt, man. I ain't gonna lie. I was hurt. Like, dang, he just tore into me. I was like, did he not understand I was training for the league? Like, whatever. And at that time, I thought for sure I wasn't gonna get the job, and I had started, excuse me, for like those 2 weeks in between before I got like the next interview or whatever. I was doing like security, like I was doing security and stuff like that. Because I was a football player, I'm doing security, right? And that's probably one of the hardest things is to go from glory to a regular job, dude. Like that's one of the hardest things that that not a lot of people talk about that athletes have to go through. Like imagine being in a stadium of, thousands of people and you're performing and, people know you and stuff like that to a regular 9 to 5. It's a whole, man, like after I stopped playing football, I couldn't watch football for 2 years. Like I didn't watch it. Like I couldn't. It was, I was almost depressed because of that. You know what I mean? So I tell myself, 22-year-old self, don't give up. There will be better days. There will be better days. Do not give up. And thank God that it didn't go the way that we're talking about right now. But yeah, not to give up 100%.
Wonderful. And the final question we always ask people, Tyler, is, we are the FI guys here, and FI stands for financial independence. And something we've discovered over the years of doing this and bringing on guests is that, well, financial independence means completely different things to completely different people. So, Tyler, what does financial independence mean to you?
That's a great question. I believe in what are called the 5 Fs, which stands for faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun. And I truly believe if all aspects of those are whole in your life, meaning nothing missing, nothing broken, that leads to the 6 F, which is freedom. Okay. So I believe if you have those 5 things whole in your life, you have a great faith. I don't know what your faith is. You don't have to have my faith. You believe in whatever you want to believe in. But if you have faith, you have a family that you spend time with that loves you, you love them. Family and friends go very close together. The scripture talks about there's a friend that's closer than a brother. Okay. Because sometimes we have friends that are closer to us than some of our family members are. And because some of us have family members in which you're like, you ain't acting like family. Right. And then fitness. I'm huge on working out. I'm in the gym every morning, not every morning, 6 days a week. So 6 days of the week, I'm in the gym at 6 a.m., getting it in, making sure my fitness is right. Finances, making sure I'm whole in my finances. I want nothing missing, nothing broken. And then last but not least, having fun. I think some people get to a certain age in which they forget how to have fun. All right. I asked them, I meet with so many different people. Like, oh, what do you do for fun? I got kids. I don't know how to have fun. Huh? If you got kids, you should be having even more fun because you got kids. And then I believe if you have all those whole in your life, then you have the last F, which is freedom. And financial freedom, what that gives you the ability to do is just have choices. That's all that is. If you can go out and have the choices that you want to make because you have the finances to do so, then now you're free. Financial freedom is different for everybody because everyone's independence number is different. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Because
Correct.
what some people might say is financial independence might not be same for somebody else. Now, how do you want to live once you're financially free? Because financial freedom, let's say if a person, if they're currently only making 3 grand a month, and now they start coming into 15 grand a month, if you keep the same quality of life, you're free, right? So I just think everyone's numbers going to be different. But for me, having those 5 Fs work in my life properly and nothing missing, nothing broken is freedom.
It's kind of crazy that you said that. I'm not sure if you've ever listened to my podcast before, but I actually brought up my 5 Fs before because I've actually talked about the exact same concept. And I thought I came up with that, but mine are a little bit different than yours.
Okay.
Mine's called the 5FP.
Okay.
And for me, it kind of comes your family, your friends, your fitness, your finances, and then forward progress.
Mm.
Because I think for me, the reason that maybe yours is a little bit different than mine, you have faith, I have forward progress. Your faith is, getting you closer to the Lord, getting you closer to growth, to divinity. And for me, I believe the purpose of life is to try to grow, to become a better person that serves yourself in the group.
Yes.
So regardless of, I think we're both using the same different words for the same types of feelings. I think it's kind of crazy that we both have the same 5 Fs, just with slightly different words for one of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Tyler, thank you so much for joining me here on the Five Guys podcast. It's been a complete pleasure. For our audience members, please, if you got any value out of today's podcast, please leave it a like, a comment, but most importantly, share the podcast with one friend, one family member, one person that you meet, because Tyler's words today were practical. They were helpful. They can get you out of a place just to show you that you are not alone in this situation. So Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone, links for finding Tyler will be down in the description. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.